And we're live this week in Coverager. It is, I try to keep my calendar close by and I can never see it. It's Friday, June 26th, early in the morning. Long week post getting close to 4th of July. And so I want to introduce my co-host, Avi, Shefi. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So this is the show where we talk about items that have appeared in Coverager, hot topic items, items of note. So I'll kick it over to Avi to get the first item for this week in Coverager. What do you got, Avi?
Well, it felt like a slow week, but actually some big stories this week. And the first story is something close to my heart, at least, is HealthIQ. They've been expanding into Medicare. Now they're building a P&C team. And they're kind of going the route of SelectQuote, in my opinion, and others in that area. And I'm personally disappointed, and I'll tell you why. When HealthIQ came to this world, I spoke to several insurance carriers that were so impressed with the company, how they're able to get millennials to think and talk about insurance, how they have this innovative approach. So they promised us, or others talking about them promised us millennials, and now we're going to end up with another company that's selling to seniors, because seniors, they're retired, they're at home, they're still naive enough to answer the phone, they like to talk to people. What's going on? And to me, again, this is a big issue, because who is going to target millennials? Are you still an insurtech company if you target seniors now? Like, really, I'm asking, are you still an insurtech company? Because when insurtech came to this world, it was all about connecting with the digital consumer, with the millennials, the one that want the experience. A senior buying Medicare, they're happy to do it over the phone. They're not complaining.
Is it possible that the shift to that direction really indicates just how difficult it is to market insurance through digital media? Like, does it seem like companies are essentially not necessarily giving up, but are just like, this is really hard, it's expensive, we need to find another source of revenue where it's not so hard to get customers?
So if you
Let
ask
me
me,
let me tell a story. Let me tell a story, because our mom was it's our mom, but my mom for now was reminding me this week how I used to rejoice every time a new subscriber signed up for Coverager. She'd say that I was like the happiest, and it would be one a day, if at all. We're talking way back when, before Avi even came up with the name Coverager. It is a long, a long process. It's a challenging process with anything, not just with insurance. So I think if you're coming in with the expectation that everything is going to be easy, or you're a bit arrogant, which I think is the case with HealthIQ, then you don't stick to the plan. And maybe the plan wasn't, the segmentation was awesome for HealthIQ. And to Avi's point, I think people to this day, many insurance companies, just talk really positive about HealthIQ. But here's what I've learned. If you ask a follow-up question and people begin to stumble or don't have an answer, or they say it's off the record, BS. You don't know why you like the company. That's what it means. You have to go beyond like that appearance. And HealthIQ, had the best appearance. Appearances of basically marketing Facebook on Instagram. These are messages that resonated. Of course, the whole story with Google. I mean, you can create a Netflix documentary out of this without even knowing the ending. So I think the biggest red flag was when HealthIQ turned down their Facebook reviews, which were really telling about, it's the same life insurance application experience. Really what attracted the customers to HealthIQ was the notion of fair price. And, they were targeting those that do yoga, and those that run, and those that are vegan, right? All those groups, communities, if you will, because I do think it's a lifestyle kind of movement. And it worked really well, but they were also known as the king of spam. right? Just tons of advertising. And then they did quizzes. I don't think they do that anymore, not based on their reviews on Google app and Google, what is it?
AdWords.
They still
Yeah,
ask you to go through a quiz when you like put in your information.
on the
They say we need
desktop.
more information. Yeah, let me tell
Yeah.
you something about their marketing. Okay, so Lemonade, which I respect when it comes to marketing. I think they're very creative. They were paying $270 per policyholder, something like that. Now, when I'm not a runner, I'm not a vegan. I don't lift weights. I don't swim. I mean, sometimes I soak in the bathtub, but I don't have my bathing suit on or anything like that. But when I see an ad like that, I say, who the hell is this company? I want to click on it. I want to see what runners, because I always wanted to be a runner. I always wanted to be a swimmer, and believe me, this is not just me. Other people click because they're curious. Now, here's the problem with this marketing model. You pay for the clicks. So now people that are not runners, not vegans, not weightlifters are clicking. Now, the other element is, and this is from the beginning, and I don't know if HealthIQ was doing this to show investors traction. Look at us, we're growing. And you have to compare to Policy Genius because a lot of carriers compare them to Policy Genius. So here's the comparison. HealthIQ went for display advertising, social media, websites, anything but Google, where people actually express interest. So Instagram, Facebook, places like that. Now, if I'm on my mobile, and most of their traffic comes from mobile, by the way, I'm looking at restaurants, following my friends, seeing then an insurance ad. I mean, am I going to stop and apply for life insurance? Who even says that I'm interested in life insurance? So they did that. They spent a ton of money on marketing. Their conversion rates are really bad. Why are they really bad? Because if they were really good, you wouldn't see a decline in traffic. They wouldn't stop what they're doing. And they wouldn't go into Medicare. They're willing to license and train Medicare agents. They're going into P&C. So I think they're all over the place. I think whoever believed the promise, and I have to go back, like really, you don't have the right to be a consumer facing branded insurance. It's very simple. And if you're trying to get someone else to do your work, it's not going to work because you can give HealthIQ as much money as you want. It's not going to show, the results are not going to be there. And it's not a model that anyone can replicate and do it properly. So Policy Genius went the other route and said, well, we're going to be really good on Google. So whenever people search, for example, when people type in routing number on check, who is that person that doesn't know where the routing number on a check is? Probably a young person, right? That may be their audience that in a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now may need life insurance and they might remember Policy Genius. And it takes time. And that's, HealthIQ was running ahead of Policy Genius. Now all of a sudden, where's Policy Genius and where's HealthIQ? So you asked, Shefi, what you do when it's hard. To me, if you promise something and you can't deliver on that promise, quit. Return the money, do something else. Don't go into Medicare. Don't go into auto sales. Don't try to save yourself. Yeah, but that's what I would expect because you can't say that it's business as usual. That's the thing.
So here's the thing about expressing. Go ahead.
No, I'm just confused. Right when I saw the post in Coverage, I don't know what day it came out, but when I saw it, it didn't make any sense. Right? It was like you're leaping into this other era that you have no familiarity with. Reeks of desperation, right? And then the branding. How are you going to actually even pull this off with a straight face? That was my first knee-jerk reaction.
Yeah. HealthIQ will become just the culture brand of the company. Aren't they the ones with the ping pong table? Not ping pong tables, but they're very health conscious.
But it's funny, Shefi, because they took the same tagline of their HealthIQ original, finally lower rates to vegans, weightlifters, all that, to Medicare, finally lower Medicare rates to people rewarding healthy lifestyles. How do you know that this senior is now healthy? What are you going to do? Their blogs are about people smoking. If you're a smoker here, you can still get insurance. That wasn't why they came into this world. That was not the concept of HealthIQ. And, that's a company that went on to raise money and all that. We understand that sometimes that's the game. I am personally disappointed, and I think a lot of insurance companies that supported them should be disappointed as well. But we'll keep an eye out.
Yeah. Shefi, were you going to make another point about Health IQ?
Well, Avi was talking about you have to express interest. So just to make sure when you go to Google and you shop for auto insurance or home insurance or life insurance, you've expressed interest. It means that you're in the business of shopping for insurance. Vice versa on Instagram or Facebook or even alternative distribution, right? We've seen this week, I think Bold Penguin announced a partnership with Zen Business, right? So they're targeting the same audience. Because Zen Business is helping entrepreneurs launch their first business from a legal perspective, right? Set up the company. So this whole notion of alternative distribution, which is getting a lot of interest, and rightfully so, because you want to avoid Google and Facebook ads. You have this challenge where you may have a captive audience, but they're not necessarily ready to buy insurance. So it is going to require a lot of marketing and a lot of communication to this audience in order for you to see a return, right? People don't go intuitively to entrepreneur.com to buy insurance. They go to read the news, right? So you have to make that effort to convince them and to get them to know a different brand. But again, to my earlier point, nothing is easy. Play the game, play it right, stay in the game, right? Stick to what you said. If it was a good idea, right? If it was a bad idea, obviously pivot or go into Medicare. But
I can
acknowledge.
I can kind of see 2 points to that, Shefi. One is, I personally, my business instincts are to try to play the long game, but that's not investors' instincts. Investors' instincts, they'll talk a good game, talk about playing the long game, but then they'll ask, well, how is your quarterly revenue growth, right? So they're looking at that. So to me, it seems like there's the conflict is in the balance of the two, right? I think the big growth is playing the long game, creating new markets, satisfying those markets, and by doing that, by having patience and playing the long game, you essentially create a little bit of a moat because others will not want to play the long game. They'll want to play the short game. But how do you pay the bills in the short run? There's that conflict that I think that's what we might be seeing here. Whereas these companies are just losing patience. They may have stakeholders or others that are just like, we don't have time to play the long game.
HealthIQ has time to play that. No. Not everybody. This is not a rate. There's so many startups, right? Think about this. We can't treat everybody equally. This is one of the top funded startups for an insurance startup that was founded in 2014. No excuses. Did you hear me?
I heard you. Yeah.
Maybe it was me. It was me. Yeah.
No,
okay.
Yeah. So I think no excuses. Stick to what you said. You raised a lot of money. Do the job.
My comment about what you said, Nick, about investors want growth, and the whole concept of raising money is to go fast. You have to understand the problem with insurance. This is not Netflix where you're going to see mass adoption because people like to watch shows. No one is waiting for Clear Cover to buy insurance. No one is waiting for Lemonade to buy insurance. No one is waiting for HealthIQ. Consumers don't care. So we get that you want to grow fast, but it's not up to you and it's not up to your investors. So you could try to generate that interest. It's going to cost you a lot of money. Then you're going to go into a problem. And it's not that your model was wrong. As you said, you just needed to play the long game. You probably should have done it on a smaller scale and slowly, just like Policy Genius is doing, slowly. And it may make others upset, like, okay, what's going on? Where are the policies? Wait, and then you'll see. But it's not going to be fast. No. In insurance, nothing is going to be fast.
Patience, power. And there are insurance investors and there are non-insurance investors like Andreessen Horowitz, right? So we have to hold different parties accountable for different things. Like you expect an insurance investor to understand the dynamics and the DNA of this business.
Yeah. I respect the non-insurance investors. The insurance investors should know better. I'm not sure that they're necessarily bringing their wisdom to the table, because I feel like they lose patience as well, but they should know better. The tech investors like Andreessen Horowitz, companies like that, there's an interesting play there, right? Because they're used to how tech, like Avi said, with like Netflix, it's you can get mass adoption very quickly. Just look at Parlor app now, that's competing with Twitter. Just amazing growth, right? I think a lot of tech investors expect the same thing. Like, why wouldn't we expect the same thing? These are the economics. These are the dynamics. This is what we should expect on the insurance side. But they're also, I think, wise enough, I think, to be introspective and say, should we expect that kind of growth in insurance? And I wouldn't be surprised if you saw a lot of tech investors leave, because the dynamics are different. So,
Totally.
Good point. Yeah.
So what is topic number 2? Who do I go to?
Mighty
Allstate is
Reed.
topic number 2.
All right, Allstate.
Jetty first. Okay. I think Allstate. Allstate is
It's a
interesting.
good story,
And,
Jetty.
Oh, well, we'll save Jetty for last.
All right, and then a positive note.
So, Nick, I want to ask you, what do you think about Allstate kind of going the Liberty Mutual route, saying, here is a discount if you buy online. If you skip the agent, here is a discount. Allstate is looking to do the same. They got approved in a few states, 7% discount. If you're an Allstate agent, are you upset?
Yes.
Why?
Because they're going to carve you out. So it would be a red flag to me to begin the process of becoming an independent agent.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's from a consumer perspective, you can understand.
Yes, of course.
You can understand. From a brand perspective, like from a company perspective, you say they want it to be stronger, more competitive. You can understand, but then again, you have these captive agents that, I think they have over 10,000 agents. It's very delicate. That's what I'll say. It's very, very delicate. And it's already hard for insurance agents to be agents, whether you're captive or independent. And there's a whole indie movement, don't be captive, be independent. While some will say, well, Allstate has a brand. Like, their marketing helps me close business. So there's that element.
Of course.
But
they're trading the brand to have the captive audience. But I think just like the topic we just talked about, I think there's a lack of patience, and also there's I think they see the growth of Geico and they're just like, we should replicate that. Like, just look at what they're doing. We're already spending a ton on advertising. Why don't we just go the whole way? They don't want to rip the Band-Aid off, though. They want to just gently peel it one hair at a time.
Yeah, no, it's really interesting, but I don't know. I don't think they could play. Like, you have to be fully committed, as you said. You want to rip the Band-Aid off, rip it off. Don't be here and be there, because you're going to make people upset. You wouldn't know your direction. And still, consumers, they see 7% here, 15% there, 20% there, 52% here. They've seen a lot of discounts in their lifetime, promises for discounts. That's not what's going to probably get consumers to buy from you. They may get the quote. They're still going to compare you. So that's the thing. When you move away from the agent, and this is what I always say, in the old days, offline, the beauty of it was that you made people feel guilty. I would feel guilty calling an agent saying, hey, buddy, I want to cancel. I don't want to work with you anymore. Are you crazy? I mean, who will do that? When you take away the agent, when it's 100% online, it may be easier for you to convince the customer to buy, seamless experience, but you're going to lose way more customers than just look at Lemonade, for example, their retention rate. If you're 100% online, then you're going to have bad retention rates, because there is nothing there. There is no piece or element that makes you feel guilty and makes you say, hey, let's figure it out. You got an increase. Let's see what we can do. So it's a very dangerous road, to me.
I'm thinking one of the advantages Allstate has is that unlike Geico and unlike Progressive, Allstate has they do a lot of stuff. So they do auto, homeowners, small business, life. They have a broad suite. Who's going to sell? Who's going to cross sell all of that stuff? Like that's part of what having an agent is, forming that relationship with someone so that you can become a trusted advisor. I don't know. I think I'm falling into your camp, Avi. I see the independent agent system as being immensely valuable, just because everyone's moving away from it, and as that over time it becomes more and more valuable. Because once that trusted advisor forms a relationship with someone, it's going to be really hard to separate that person from that agent. And if that agent has options, multiple carriers, etc., then it's going to be almost unless that agent screws up, it's going to be impossible to sever that relationship.
Yeah, but you have to look at, if Allstate is doing something like this, then maybe as they're not as happy with their growth, and maybe they're kind of putting the blame on agents where you're not working fast enough, you're not selling fast enough, or whatever it is. But that's what it in my opinion, that's what it says, because if they were happy with the agents, the results, they wouldn't do something like that. So
I don't know about you guys. To me, this is probably the single biggest conflict I see in my day-to-day operating a business, is the inability to discern the difference between an expense and an investment. And the independent agent, Shefi, is viewed as an expense to Allstate. They're subtracting that number. I don't know. I think it's more of an investment. I think it's an asset that delivers over time and that needs to be cultivated. It's not an expense. It's just what you need to feed that asset to keep it alive. I view the independent agent system as more of an asset than an expense.
Well, the problem with the system is that it comprises of so many different individuals. And what Allstate still can do is, maybe if on the broader scheme of things, the commission is lower, there are still bonuses and way for them to incentivize the really good agents. And for those agents that are getting more money, either via a bonus or a different kind of program, they will still stay loyal to Allstate because they're probably bringing in more business. So I think it's just really hard to look at the independent agency channel as just this cluster. I always had a challenge with that when I was working at CNA, because there were some really fantastic agents, and there was just a lot of agents, and that would give us business here and there, but there was not enough to go by. So everybody has that kind of that 20% sure, that they want to invest in, right? And maybe that's what it also, to me, I see this just as an opportunity for Allstate to offer more competitive pricing. And whether there's a conflict or not, they have to do it. They have to be in the game. They are online. They are investing money in marketing and advertising. So they need to protect the business. And to your point, if agents cross sell, then maybe there's more opportunity. But when I look at the journey, it's probably going to be just 100% you quote online for certain individuals. And then when the agents come in, they come in and, for the advisory role, but how much of the advisory is actually taking place for auto insurance or for the commodity business? It's going to come later on. So we need to be able to kind of understand, as an insurer, you have to understand your business, understand what, a channel fit, and how to compensate, not just like first year in business, second year in business. And to me, that's what Allstate is figuring it out. And I thought it was a good initiative.
Yeah. At the end of the day, the consumers today that go to Google do not search for agents. That's a fact. I believe from our research, 2.7% look for an agent on Google. So they're reacting to the environment. Will that 7% help? We'll see. But consumers, I assume those are the young people going on Google. They're not looking for agents for different reasons, but that's just a fact.
Well,
And independent agents aren't the only ones struggling.
yeah.
Like we like to look at them as, sometimes we look at them as victims, that everybody is trying to take a piece of their pie and all their great work. But, you know, first of all, for years and years, you could be an insurance agent and still have a book and earn really nice commission for a job that changes very little over the years. But everybody's feeling the competition, right? You know, look at Insurreon today versus Insurreon 7 years ago. Not the easy market it had, right? But they were at one point considered a threat to independent agents for the carriers that they worked with. And even Insurreon will tell you, well, I also have this conflict of interest because, hey, here I am selling Hartford, but Hartford is competing with me directly.
Yeah.
So I think everybody's competing with everybody. And
So, but that it's like the beginning of time, right? There's been this conflict with the agency system. And I can't help but kind of go back to, if someone has to sell your product. And Avi brought this up at the beginning, which was it's everyone's going to go digital, and that's somehow going to make it easier, but it makes it harder because it's so easy to go digital. It's so easy to get online, to have a web page, to do digital marketing. Becomes more expensive and ultimately becomes harder because there's more competition. In the old days, agents would form these very strong relationships with people at church, temple, sports, bingo, whatever. They'd form these relationships, and those relationships would be very difficult to sever. And so this seems like the endless conflict of, man, these agents are making way too much money, and the agents are saying, do you know how hard it is to run an agency and how expensive and the overhead is? So there's this like lack of trust between the two parties. But at the end of the day, I just keep thinking, well, who's going to sell your product, right? Like, I don't think it can be fully digitized. So I don't know what the answer is, but I think it just seems like an endless conflict.
We agree.
I don't think that conflict is going to be solved anytime
No.
soon. I think we're just going
And we're not the right people to solve it, but we definitely have strong opinions. And, and I think, what I love about the work that you're doing is you bring to light, coverage over the years, bring to light, like, just how difficult it is, how expensive it is, but how necessary it is to go digital. Right. And so I don't know. I think it could all boil down to that, these insurance companies it's the indifferent consumer, right?
Mhm.
Shefi.
Yeah.
Brian Falchuk brought that up in my interview with him. He got that from you. Consumers are indifferent about the product, right? And I think that the executives, the leaders of this company, don't really have that innovation mindset. They're not creative in how they're reaching these people, and so I think the conflict manifests itself just in the dynamics of the business. Bad product, bad in that the customers aren't actively seeking it, and you have business owners, managers, execs who are scratching their heads saying, how do we sell more in that environment? And they just can't be creative enough. It's not their bailiwick. So
To begin with, every time I used to ask agents, how do you get your leads? One, I would never really get a great answer because it's not the first thing that they would do when the phone rings, ask how did you hear about us? But I think a lot of times is that with agents, or the way that we grew our business, and even the way Coverager grew its business originally, it was word of mouth, right? So
yeah.
It's not, you don't go out there and you say, I want to sell you something, right? And that has been the business of agents. Now carriers are forced to play a different game, right? So everybody needs to look. You can only solve this problem if you start from the specific independent agency you want to solve it for, or for the insurer, because the dynamics are so different. CNA is so different from Hartford. Hartford is so different from Travelers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So topic number 3, Shefi. I think it has something to do with Jetty.
Yeah, so this is a good topic or a good story, or at least good ending and a new beginning. So if you remember, we've covered Jetty let go of a good portion of its workforce, unfortunately, part because of COVID, and part because Munich Re basically asked it to stop writing business. Just they were in the rent deposit scheme, and obviously with COVID and whatever happens in New York real estate, there's a lot of concerns. So there was a better way that Munich Re could have gone about this, or there's a better way for Jetty to have communicated it, but a lot of it was kind of a top-down approach. And what we've learned this week is that Farmers Insurance will be taking over the reinsurance portion of Jetty. So any future product that Jetty is selling is going to be on Farmers' paper. So if you think about Farmers, which is obviously owned by Zurich, but Farmers also has the Toggle brand, which they launched, I think about 2 years ago. And it's a renter's insurance offering. So they're, at the time you would think, Jetty's competing with Toggle. And in a sense, they're playing in the same space. So to me, these are basically two competitors that are facing the challenges of going online and going direct and, acquiring one after one. And they're doing all the right things, like the user experience, going beyond insurance with different elements, rewards, everything that we see trending. But still, it's a long game, and they're probably realizing that they could do better together. And I remember that, Avi, in 2017, you did a before and after of Jetty, basically capturing their workflow. And I don't have the quote in front of me, but it was along the lines of Jetty is competing with Lemonade, but we were still waiting to see if Trove is going to enter that space for renters insurance. That was the talk of the town back then. So, 3 years later, Lemonade is way over there, and Jetty has some work to do. And obviously their renters insurance is no longer direct to consumer. It's only B2B. So it pivoted a bit in terms of its customer acquisition. Trove obviously pivoted a bit as well. They're no longer Trove pivoted a lot. They're not that direct to consumer. They're focusing on mobility for the right reasons. And right now, we just have to see, okay, where is this Jetty, Farmers, Toggle trio going to take us?
Yeah, to your point, Shefi, in the beginning, it did look like they were competing with each other, but I do think they complement each other well because Toggle, just because they come from a big insurer, I don't think they have the budget. I'm sure they do, but I don't think the insurer, Farmers, is saying, well, here's an endless budget. Let's go see what we can do. So they're very conservative. So they found Jetty, which is, I think, doing good things in the real estate industry. They originally started, if people remember, they were promoting $5 renters insurance ads on Google as an answer to Lemonade. Of course, when people went in to get the quote, it wasn't really $5, and they understood they couldn't play that game because they didn't have the funding of Lemonade. But they pivoted. They now call themselves a fintech company, which is interesting. And renters insurance completely went behind the scenes, and it's only offered now through their partners, so consumers can get it on their own. It's a competitive market. There's LeaseLock there and Rhino, but I actually think as a renter, it's a good product. Like, it actually is a product that you would like to have instead of putting that deposit down. So I think it's a really good product. It's going to become more mainstream. There's a lot of states now with different rules and this when it comes to renting. So it's going to be more mainstream. The question is, will they win the business, or is it going to be LeaseLock or Rhino? Or, of course, don't forget Assurant. They're also a player in the space. But I thought of this as like, hey, we want to be innovative, but we need like an insurtech or a fintech now player to actually go and do the work, help us do the work, because it's one thing to build the website, to build the product, to build the experience and all that. Distribution is a different ballgame, and I think that's where Jetty can help Toggle. And of course, Jetty found a new partner, and I'm pretty sure they're happy about that.
So the counter move is for Lemonade to buy a renter deposit company. There are so many of them. I mean, pick and choose.
It's a good. It's going to be a good industry, and the big markets where Lemonade operates, California, New York, Texas, where there's a lot of renters. And again, no one wants to put now a $5,000 deposit. If you could, pay $300 or something like that, keep that money, buy yourself a new couch, a new TV. I mean, who wants to put
Of
that money
course.
away? It's a big issue.
There's a bundling opportunity here.
Oh yeah,
I think they all
definitely.
see that.
Well, some landlords are preferring the rent deposit scheme because it all depends on the kind of product that these folks are offering. But for some landlords, I mean, this is peace of mind because if they have to evict or if they want the tenant to be out, then it all depends on how much. Depends on the coverage, but some of these coverages can go up to 6 months of payment. So it's not only from the perspective of the deposit, because I remember when I first read it, and this was, obviously my kind of, I am A to A audience, not everybody, but I thought I would rather put the cash. Why would I want to pay somebody a fee? That was my take. And obviously Avi has a different take, but it
Well,
just,
Shefi has more money than me, so that's why she rather put the cash. It's because he has
well,
money. I don't have
these
any
are not,
money.
these are not free products, but you pay for them.
Yeah, it's
They
it's a
always give you
different
the very
mindset.
low.
Yeah, yeah. My father-in-law keeps on telling me, "Oh, why would you want to pay credit cards interest every month? Why don't you pay it in full?" I said, "Well, I don't have any money, and you do, so that's why." But obviously, no one wants to pay interest or fees. But we're poor. I mean, what can you
But
do?
some landlords are going to push for these kind of products, especially in this environment in New York City, right? These are very
And especially now
urban
with
targeting.
COVID-19,
Yeah,
finances of people,
Yeah,
it's not going to be
stress.
easy, and
Yeah.
a landlord is going to try to make it easier for people to be able to rent, get down with that crazy, you have to make 40 times the rent, 100 times the rent, forget
yeah,
about that. And don't forget, we've been speaking to a few companies giving up their commercial real estate, not renewing their leases, and now everybody's saying, well, commercial real estate developers need to turn that into residential. So if now you're going to have more apartments on the market, prices are going to go down maybe. So it's going to be very difficult, and you want to make it easier for renters. And Jetty, LeaseLock, Rhino, they have a product that makes it easier.
we now know of two New York City-based insurtechs that have one has given up the office, let go of the entire team, and the second one is giving up their office till the end of the year. That one was a kind of a WeWork arrangement. So we'll see what it's a lot easier to give that away and pick that up next year.
Yeah. Yeah. The, one of the other advantages, so because of the small premiums, small margin in renters, it makes a lot of sense if you can have relationships with property managers as well. So to me, the bundling is advantageous because then you can potentially, slide your renter's insurance product in and have the property manager promote it. Like, you need renter's insurance to fulfill the terms of your lease. We recommend you go to XYZ company, and they happen to be doing the deposit insurance or whatever. I like that bundling. The renter's insurance by itself was always just like, you can't make. How are you going to possibly make any money doing this? The premiums are just way too small and it's too expensive to get a customer. You have to somehow get it in bulk, in mass, in order to make the numbers work out. So I think that, to me, it seems like that's a natural, and it'll be kind of par for the course. Everyone will sort of be doing this at some point.
Well, I think, and I said this to Shefi when I saw the partnership, I said, well, if anyone is going to acquire Jetty, it's probably going to be farmers. That's what I think. I think
Yeah.
if the collaboration is good,
Yeah.
if
Yeah.
anyone will acquire, it will be them. And don't forget all the platforms out there that are targeting the real estate industry, the multifamily industry, streamlining the renting, the listing, insurance, all of that. So they're going to be big players. So whoever is going to partner with them, or whoever maybe an insurance company acquires a player, as we always say, they're going to have a say. Because they have access to the landlords, the
Yeah.
building developers. So a very interesting space. but it is a space where you really need to there's one way to distribution, and it goes through the landlords, the buildings.
I agree.
That's the way, not online.
Not one at a time. You can't.
Yeah.
It really requires a lot of donuts.
A lot of donuts.
Yes.
Because that's one tactic. You have to get the property managers to say yes. So. Yeah,
I agree. I prefer munchkins though.
I love munchkins.
Easier.
Just I love those. Yeah.
Small.
You don't feel guilty. You eat it. It's like, oh, this is small.
Absolutely.
You then eat 30, but they're small.
So, that's our fade music. This was good for such a slow week. There was actually some really interesting stories that have occurred. So we'll see if we can continue the momentum next week.
Of course.
So
yep.
For Avi, for Shefi, this is June 26th. This week in Coverager. Please subscribe. We're still in a pandemic, so please be safe. Wash your hands. Put your mask on. Just put your mask on. It's not that big a deal.
Yeah.
And we'll see all of you next week. Shefi, Avi, thank you.
Thanks,
Nick. Have a good weekend.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.